Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Brett Norman YouTube channel with Michael on What Does the Bible Tell Us About Conspiracies? We're on session 22. It is the 26th of March today. Michael, welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much, and welcome, dear Brett, and welcome, dear listeners. It's session 22 already, but it is not the same session as I did in German because in German I have a much more slower pace to go out to this, for several reasons. I have to translate much from English into German and all the things. So this is session 22. Would be the equivalent to the German session 26, I think it was. So then let's proceed until Microsoft cuts us short. This is a runner-up for the last session where we talked about Asterix and Obelix. Yeah, you see that these obelisks you see here so very prominent in Paris with the Eiffel Tower. As above, so below. You got the female part with the arc. You got a pyramid. You got the obelisk size and all the things. It was once the most tallest building in the world, about 300 meters, about 1,000 feet. And it is, of course, the symbol for the Republic of France. So much so that is nearly the same function as the so-called Washington Monument, which is the obelisk of Osiris, or more honestly mentioning the obelisk of Nimrod in Babel. But nobody speaks of Nimrod today. Everybody speaks about Osiris. Because the majority of people, especially when they are Freemasons, they would say that the cradle of mankind is in Egypt because of all the fancy buildings which endured even very harsh times, if you know what I mean. So you see these obelisks everywhere, in all nations, even in Germany, in Italy, in the United States, in Egypt, of course. And so many things which you would never think of. This is a congress of dentists in Buenos Aires. This is Argentina. This is in Latin America. Many people think of it as South America. Actually, it's better being labeled as Latin America because there were so many Portuguese and Spanish conquerors in the Middle Ages to collect all the precious items and metals and to force the people into believing the Roman Catholic Church, not to be misspelled and to be confused with real Christianity, please. And also you got this obelisk here nearby the cathedral in Cologne. This is Germany. Cologne means the colony of the Romans. Yes. And this is very interesting because in many cultures you have these artifacts, you have these obelisks, you have columns, and columns is always a depiction of a temple. For example, if that would be around, you would name it a column, it would be a temple. And so I switched over to the, because of recent times, I switched over to Alexander Hislop and the two Babylons, which you can see here, because what is coming up is a Roman Catholic feast called Easter. And the Reverend Alexander Hislop, he has made substantial claims in his book, The Two Babylons, about Easter, that it is absolutely a pagan festivity. It is of Chaldean origin, and its very forehead. Easter is nothing else than Astarte, one of the titles of Beltis, the Queen of Heaven, etc. You can imagine where all leads to. So I try to enlarge it a bit so it is easier to read. I think that is more suitable for our readers and for Brett, of course. Whose name, as pronounced by the people of Nineveh, was evidently, identical with that now in common use in this country. That name, as found by Layard on the Assyrian monuments, is Ishtar, The worship of Baal and Astarte was very early introduced into Britain along with the Druids, the priests of the groves. Ah, Bohemian, huh? Some have imagined that the Druidical worship was first introduced by the Phoenicians, who centuries before the Christian era traded to the tin mines of Cornwall. So, etc., 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 etc. But you see that it's absolutely the same as you would exchange Nimrod with Osiris and Semiramis with Isis, and then you are in the Egyptian cultural pagan heritage. Yeah. It's also the same. It's also, you can exchange Babylon with Egypt and you always get it right. This is a pagan called Trinity, a pagan family, father, mother, and son. Yep, and in real Christianity, you got no Trinity, separated Trinity with mother. Yeah, there is no mother in the real Christian belief, or is they, Brett? I don't think so.
No, well, of course, in the Roman Catholic belief, there sure is.
Yeah,
and some people regard Roman Catholics as Christian, don't they?
I think it's the most common mistake. Actually,
it is the most common. Well, there's other mistakes too, like the Gnostics. They're considered Christians too. Who else do we got in there? I could throw a bunch of them in there. I don't know. That's the other one that comes to mind.
Yeah, that's a real deal. But you see that it is as it is. And
I got another one. Yeah. How about Orthodox Eastern Orthodox Catholicism? That's another one.
Yeah, sure. But the thing is, though, that you have many people, the majority of people here are educated Roman Catholics. So we got public holidays on Christmas, or public holidays on Easter. You see all the things, and the people take it for granted.
Putin, Vladimir Putin, he's a Christian too. Oh yeah. Sure. He's Eastern Orthodox Catholic, actually. Big difference between Protestantism and Catholicism, actually, especially when you look at your history and you know your 15th century, 16th century, 14, 15, 16th century. Yeah. Oh, boy. Go on and on and on.
Yeah, so you see that the name of Easter has been derived from Ishtar. And so you see that it's always the same. It is a fertility rite, a fertility feast. And the official thing, which is also depicted here in that book, which I can highly recommend, the book is called Two Babylons by Reverend Alexander Hislop. This also goes into the legend of Semiramis, who originally came from the moon in an egg. Yeah, so that you see that egg also being a symbol of fertility when it comes down to female reproduction. Yep. The Easter. Easter, and also all the things go. And I think that listeners of your channel, Brett, are more aware of Easter than the listeners of maybe a German channel, because in Germany it is so unknown where all that comes from, because I don't know why, because we name it Ostern. Yeah, so we don't have the direct reference to Ishtar or Easter. Yeah, so we have to take another road to the English language to come to the conclusion that Easter comes from Ishtar. There are so many deceptions around there. It's unbelievable. But it's all about fertility. You see, the rabbits are for fertility. Eggs are for fertility. And what is the main reason that people would like to celebrate Easter is the presents. Yes, not your presents, but the presents that you got. Yeah, so little children are very anxious what the Easter rabbit will bring. Okay. Yeah, so we all fell to the lies, and I found it extremely interesting that in a very early age, when you are 5 or 6 years old, you discover that your parents have been lied to you. There is no Easter bunny.
There is no Santa Claus.
No. You see how dangerous these rites are, because in a young age you remember and you discover actually that your parents are not that honest, and all knowingly or what, that you have thought of then before when you were a little child and were dependent from your parents, and now you discover out of a sudden, oh, they are blatant liars, as all the other parents are. There is no Easter Bunny, but apart from that, I would like to have the presents. Yeah. Yeah, so we can skip it here, because I think that everybody on your channel really knows that Easter has been mentioned, of course, in the King James Bible, but as a pagan festivity. That then, I think it was so-called Saint Peter was in captivity, and he could not be freed or could not be treated otherwise unless the feast days were over, because on that feast days the Roman used to prove their fertility on young women, if you know what I mean. I have to take my choose my words, pick my words very carefully, because I don't want to be rude and I don't want to be banned. I just want to speak out the truth. And it's very interesting when I found an article, which I, of course, can retranslate into the English language. There you are. The American people as a whole did not begin observing Easter until the Civil War. The first 13 states did not celebrate Easter in the first century of their founding. Unfortunately, they too later reached out to the Catholic Church.
Oh, the Civil War. That's very interesting, Michael, you bring this up.
Now, maybe it's not so civil, but actually I remember that it is commonly knowledge that the founding states of the United States of America did not celebrate Christmas in the beginning.
No, that's
and they did
true.
not allow Roman Catholics to take any official positions, professions whatsoever. So it started out as a so-called Protestant country, but what do you expect when you know that your so-called Protestant country has been corrupted by the foundation with the help of Freemasons?
Well, and that's something you don't learn until much later in life, too.
See? No. Yeah, you see then, and then you can approach the family of Kennedy. On the left picture, you see the family of Kennedy with two young children. You see in, I think it was Long Beach or so, it was in the Easter festivities. I'm quite sure I fetched that picture. It's concerning the Easter festivities, I'm 100% sure. And on the right side, I don't have to explain anything. Yeah, so your country or your president was raised up Catholic. For him, it was absolutely not to question the festivities, because everybody was having a good time at Christmas. And in Christmas, you see that Christ is within Christmas, but of course also in the Societas Jesu, there's also Jesus within. Yeah, so. And you see that your federal bank reserve is also not federal. Now, that's maybe the most obvious example that it's not necessary. The content is not necessary within the name, so it's just a play of words, actually. Yeah. And Easter is all about fertility. You see, either are these breasts or are these eggs, I don't know, and I don't care, because both would be a symbol for fertility. And so what once was Iostre, Ishtar, Astarte, Astaroth, yeah, this is then German Ostern, or it is of Ishtar, Easter, and it is then, of course, the feast of fertility. What else is this as a fertility goddess? It's always the same. It's always the same. Yeah? Always the same. And it is also very interesting, because the origin is Nimrod, Semiramis, and Tammuz. And this Tammuz has been mentioned in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 8, verses 14 to 17. Yeah, so that is very interesting when we would read that article here, because it depicts actually the mentioning of Tammuz, weeping for Tammuz. And this is the child in the Babylonian trilogy or trinity, if you would speak so. So Tammuz would be the equivalent in Babylon to the Egyptian Horus.
Ezekiel chapter 8, verses 14 through 17. And there stood before them 70 men of the ancients of the house of Israel, and in the midst of them stood Jazaniah, the son of Shaphan, with every man his censer in his hand, and a thick cloud of incense went up. Then he said unto me, Son of man, hast thou seen what the ancients of the house of Israel do in the dark, every man in the chambers of his imagery? For they say, The Lord seeth us not. The Lord hath forsaken the earth. He said also unto me, Turn ye yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations that they do. Then he brought me to the door of the gates of the Lord's house, which was toward the north, and lo, and behold, there sat a woman weeping for Tammuz. Then said he unto me, Hast thou seen this, O son of man? Turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abomination than these. And he brought me into the inner court of the Lord's house, and behold, at the door of the temple of the Lord, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men, with their backs towards the temple of the Lord, and their faces toward the east, and they worshipped the sun towards the east. Then he said unto me, Hast thou seen this, O son of man? It is a light thing to the house of Judah that they commit the abominations which they commit here. For they have filled the land with violence, and have returned to provoke me to anger, and lo, they put the branch to their nose. Therefore I will also deal in fury. Mine eye shall not spare, neither will I have pity. And though they cry in mine ears with a loud voice, yet will I not hear them.
Yeah, thank you very much, Brett. You see that these Tammuz has been mentioned in the Bible, and has been said that the woman weeping for Tammuz. So that was the original son of Nimrod and Semiramis. And later on, it turned out that that Nimrod died, and Semiramis claimed that Tammuz was the reincarnation of and repersonification of Nimrod. And so you see that these pagan religions try to make this child kind of divine. And also they tell about 40 days of weeping and mourning, and this is the 14 days of Lent for the Catholic Church, and not the 40 days in the desert of Jesus Christ, but it is a sun religion, actually. Yeah, they worship the sun towards the east, and you see, what do Muslims do, and what do many people do? For yoga, they have also gymnastics and yoga exercises to bow down in front of the sun and all the things. Yeah, it's very interesting to see that the pagan worships are also sun worship, which also is, of course, the symbol of the obelisk is the sun worship. You can use the obelisk as a sundial, as a sun clock, and all the things which are interconnected there. This is just the German portion. Yeah, and it's very interesting when we go into these Asterix and Obelix once again, these two Gallic people who are allegedly fighting against the Roman emperors. It is very interesting to know that Tammuz has been killed by a wild boar, and that is actually the same animal which is very famous for Asterix and Obelix movies and comics. It's because it is the favorite food of Obelix, obelisk. Yeah, so you see that once again you got here a pagan reference in a juvenile comic, for children, and it's just only for your entertainment. No, yeah, this Tammuz is killed by a wild boar. Tammuz is the son of Nimrod, and Nimrod has been depicted with the obelisk, and this guy is called Obelix. Yeah, so this is a wild boar a la Obelix. And people really think that it's just I read a comment actually of somebody who said, oh, this is not chronologically correct, because in the old times, the Gaelic people, they were not eating these wild boars. Yeah, but that's not the thing. You see, this is a historical reference. This is paganism, and people don't get the reference, of course. They think that it's just entertainment here. Yeah, they don't get it. Absolutely don't get it. Yeah, so don't ask me about any coincidences here when we know that this comic, for example, Asterix and Obelix, means obelisk and not obelix. Yeah, so it's just one small letter here. Obelix is the name of the character, and obelisk is the name of the symbol of Nimrod. Yeah, it is just SK exchanged with X. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and Tammuz has been killed by a wild boar, and there's not much more to it. There's much more to it. I will translate it once again. No big deal. Queen Ishtar, about the Easter ham. Queen Ishtar told the people that Tammuz has now ascended to his father Baal, originally Nimrod. The two would be with them in the holy flame of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Aha, the Holy Son. Ishtar further claimed that when Tammuz was killed, some of the blood fell on the trunk of a green tree, and that trunk grew overnight into a new tree. This tree is today Christmas tree in honor of Tammuz and is the Roman fir, of course. Yeah, so the holy flame. Yeah, this is the belief of the Babylonians, the holy flame. And once again, this is an evergreen then. So the fir is evergreen. It is green in summer, in spring, in autumn, and as well as in winter. It is every time it is green. So this is evergreen. Evergreen actually means a record, a song which you can play and which is not getting any older, because everybody in any generation does like it. Yeah, that's also a name of evergreen. It's not only the name of a ship company line or ship line, but also of furs. Yeah, that's also in America. I like a very special type of furs. Brad, these are called Douglas furs. I don't know if you are.
Yeah. Very familiar.
Yeah, familiar.
We call it Doug fir.
Ah, okay. Mm-hmm.
Doug fir, yeah. And I have actually flooring in my house is Doug fir.
Oh, great.
And it has a very tight grain, and
yes.
If you're so privileged to have clear lumber without any knots in it, and that makes the best flooring. But it's a very attractive actually type of wood. Mm-hmm. Doug fir. As far as woodworking goes, yes.
Yeah, I know that from the Twin Peaks, because they were doing that, filming that in the state of Washington, and they are full of these trees. And I really love these trees. They look very majestically in some kind of way, because they are so tight. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So the story goes that Ishtar went down to the underworld to bring Tammuz back to life. Yeah, that is the same story that Isis goes to the underworld, tries to fit back Osiris into life, but she fails into finding his phallus symbol. From then on, Semiramis proclaimed a time of mourning every year for 40 days before the anniversary of Tammuz's death, when people should, quote unquote, consecrate Tammuz. So that's a reference to Ezekiel, so that Tammuz would be resurrected. Also, people were to make a cross in the shape of a T in front of their hearts in honor of Tammuz. Yeah. T.
Geez.
A T, like a cross. The Catholic Church today refers to that 40-day period of mourning as Lent, and the T of Tammuz became the cross of the triune god. It was believed that Ishtar brought about the rebirth and resurrection of Tammuz in the spring, which coincided with the blossoming of nature or fertility for that reason. In the different cultures, Nimrod was worshipped under numerous names: Ra, Merodach, Marduk, Bel, Moloch, Saturn, Attis, etc. Whether in India, China, or in Papal Rome, everywhere one can admire identical statues of the pagan trinity. Yeah, or obelisk on that regard. Sometimes you can see Semiramis with her baby Tammuz in her arms, or Nimrod, Ra, Saturn, Zeus, of whom the Catholics claim it is the Saint Peter in Rome. Whether Easter, Ishtar, Astarte, etc., they are all one and the same celebration, only differently designated, depending on the time and the culture. In Protestantism, the third God, Holy Spirit, has replaced the third idol. Yeah, it's very interesting that you really see that it's just a play of names, but nothing changes. Nothing changes, actually. It's the same thing.
Where did you find that, Michael?
This is a German, it was a German page, which I have.
Oh, interesting. Very interesting.
So
revealing.
I thought it was very interesting because I needed that holy flame. Yeah. For
so
reason.
Is that also listed in English, or is that a translation?
No, it's just a summary page in German. It was.
Wow.
Yeah. And so you see the pagan trinity being combined in the holy flame of Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Yeah. So you see in Babylon, it is the father is Nimrod, then the son is Tammuz, and the mother is Semiramis, or Ishtar, or Istar, or Astar. You see that in Canaan it was Astarte, Astaroth. In Assyria it was Ishtar.
And Tammuz is the triune God.
Yeah.
That's just.
The Bible does mention Tammuz explicitly, yeah, and it's combined with people who are.
They don't teach this in the Lutheran Church, now, do they?
No, but actually, it is very important, because when we know that we can exchange Tammuz with Horus, then it is no difference if we then got the pagan worship in the Babylonian period or the pagan worship in the Egyptian period. Yeah, but it is the worship of the sun, because the father always is a depiction of the sun god. Now that's the reference here, the sun god. Yeah, so Nimrod is the sun god, Baal is the sun god, and this is incorrect here. Horus is the child and Osiris is the father, so that has been mixed up here. I saw that also in German session. Then you got Zeus or Kronos, Vishnu or Wotan or Jupiter in Rome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in the papal Rome it is the Lord God. Yeah, then the son is Jesus Christ, and the mother is Maria, but Maria is not the mother of God. Maria is the mother of Jesus. Oh, it's the mother of Jesus in the flesh. Yeah, if you say that Maria is the mother of God, then you are mixing up the hierarchy, I think. Yeah, so the Queen of Heaven was been mentioned or being worshipped as Semiramis, and it is all the same, actually. It is all the same. It is all the same. You can. Every time you can exchange the names, but you will end up with the same. Later, Semiramis, Nimrod's wife and mother, was worshipped as the so-called mother of God and fertility goddess Ishtar, Astarte, or Easter. She became the primordial mother of the gods. She became the queen of heaven, for it was believed that she ascended to heaven at her death. Yeah, that's the same where Catholics think that Maria is in heaven, Brad.
Wow. Would it be possible to post a link of that page?
Yeah, but
maybe we
find
can
that in a more elaborate context, of course, in the Alexander Hislop book.
I understand that, but it's kind of nice to have both, because I like the way this.
Yeah, I will try to remember your and to fulfill your wish.
I mean, you can just post it, and if I take a note, I can put it in the description too.
Yeah, we will do that after the session. Please remind me.
Okay, cool. Sure, we'll do.
I love these yellow post-it notes. She was also the one who gave birth to all pagan gods incarnate or representing Nimrod. So it is just a derivation, it's all the same. The prophet Jeremiah warned the Israelite people against worshipping Astarte as the queen of heaven. That's also in the Bible. But the people persisted in their idolatry. Then all the men who knew that their wives burned incense to foreign gods or pagan gods answered Jeremiah. Then all the women who stood by a great congregation, even all the people who dwelt in the land of Egypt and Patros, and they said, as for the word which thou hast been spoken unto the name of, we will not hearken unto thee, but we will surely do all that we have vowed. We will burn incense to the Queen of Heaven and pour out drink offerings to her, as we, our fathers, our kings, and our princes did in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem in those days. We had bread in abundance, and it was well with us, and we suffered no evil. But as soon as we ceased to burn incense to the Queen of Heaven and to pour out drink offerings, we lacked everywhere, and we were consumed by sword and famine. And when we burn incense to the Queen of Heaven and pour out drink offerings, do we do so without the will of our husbands, that we bake cakes for her to image and offer drinks offerings to her? Then Jeremiah spoke to all people, to all men and to all women, and to all the people who had answered him, thus saying, Has not Yahuwah remembered the incense which you and your fathers and your kings and your princes, together with the people of the land, have offered in the cities of Judah and the streets of Jerusalem? He has thought of it, and it has come to his mind. Yes, Jehovah was able to do it. The thing is here that it is the Queen of Heaven, and also the King James Bible speaks for in different times, on different. What did I do now? For different occasions of, I think it was Astarte or Ishtar. I cannot recall that by memory.
Mm-hmm.
And it was Ishtar. It's all the same. It's
Ishtar. Yes, I think so. What? No?
Maybe Ishtar.
Yeah, right.
Astaroth. Oh,
Oh,
come on.
Astaroth.
It's really hard to remember.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Asteroth.
ESV, 18 verses. Jeremiah 7:18.
There. There you go.
Yeah, then you got the drink offerings, but where is Ishtar?
Oh, yeah, I hear it. Let me try and search too while you're doing it. Ah, it's Easter, Mike.
Yeah, this is Baal here in Jeremiah 7.
Acts 12, verse 4.
Aha. Ashtaroth. Uh-huh. Ah. Mm-hmm. Let's take Ashtaroth.
Yes.
I think that's sufficient here, the search result.
Easter is also mentioned, in the book of Acts.
Mm-hmm. Only in the book of Acts.
I think so, yeah. That's it.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing which is then depicted as Astarte, Ashtaroth, Easter, etc.
Ashtaroth, yeah.
Then we have another summation here, which I will translate into English. I find it more convenient to have a summation instead of reading pages and pages of Alexander Hislop's books.
Yeah,
Astarte Ishtar,
nice.
Yeah. Astarte Ishtar was later cunningly disguised as Mary, Mother of God. When Catholics worship Mary, they continue the ancient pagan worship of Astarte, Isis, Aphrodite, Venus, and Cybele, and many other more. She was also worshipped as a intermediary between God and man. Yeah, that sounds very familiar. Sexual orgies with temple prostitutes were often performed during worship and in an attempt to gain her favor. Yeah, we tried to put that item into context in Is Science the New Religion? We did, I think it was at least 2 sessions of temple prostitution or sacred prostitution. The worship of the mother goddess with the child in her arms continued to be maintained in Egypt until Christianity arose. Yeah, what kind of Christianity? If the gospel had come with power over the broad mass of the people, the worship of this queen goddess would have been overthrown. In general, it held sway in name only. Therefore, instead of driving out the Babylonian goddess, all too often people merely changed her name. She was called Moriah, the Virgin, and with her child was worshipped by professing Christians with the same idolatrous feeling as formerly by outspoken pagans. Reference is Alexander Hislop, From Babylon to Rome, German edition, or Two Babylons, actually in the original English title, Two Babylons, the German edition on page 78. Yeah, it's just the intermingling of names. And it won't be very far-fetched to think that all these Babylonian, Egyptian, Roman rites have continued until this very day in the Roman Church, because Rome rules. All roads lead to Rome. Because roads were being invented by Rome. Easter was thus originally held in honor of Baal, Ishtar, and Tammuz. This deity is still worshipped as the rising sun. Yeah, of course, people bow down to the sun, which is rising in the east. Whose house is the house of the rising sun? You know that song? There is a house in New Orleans. They call it the rising sun. You know that from the Animals? It's a very prominent song of the 1960s, I think it was. The Madonna of Rome is then the Madonna of Babylon. The Queen of Heaven is in one system is the same as the Queen of Heaven in the other. The goddess worshipped in Babylon and Egypt as the dwelling or abode of God is identical with that which Rome under the name of Mary calls the house consecrated to God, the awful abode, the abode of God, the dwelling of the Holy Ghost, the temple of the Trinity. The Immaculate Conception in the Catholic Church means that Mary was sinless, which of course is not Christianity. Since she was without sin, she did not have to die. In 1950, Pope Pius XII, so Hitler's Pope Eugenio Pacelli, declared that God caught Mary up to heaven, known as the Assumption. Scripture, on the other hand, shows Mary as a simple and humble and faithful servant of God. But the Catholic Church has placed her in the position of Yahshua or Yahweh or what else himself. That means actually that the Roman Catholic Church, they are putting their doctrine, catechism, above the Bible.
Their tradition, Michael.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so that's the same. That's just mother-son worship, or it is just the worship of the rising sun. It's always the same. It's always the same. Where to start, where to end is always the same. So I know that one of the most interesting readings I ever found on the internet was the reading of from Babylon to Rome, or the Two Babylons, by Alexander Hislop. Mythology says that on Easter Sunday, a huge egg fell from the sky and landed in the area around the river Euphrates. It is said, so it is not proven, it is said, legend has it, that it was Semiramis who returned to Earth and sprang from this egg as the goddess Ishtar, which I have mentioned a few minutes before. If someone celebrating this event found her egg, Ishtar would pronounce a special blessing over that person. In ancient times, eggs were used in the religious rites of the Egyptians and the Greeks and were hung for mystical purposes in their temples. Of course, it's a fertility rite. From Egypt, the trace of these sacred eggs can be traced with certainty to the bank of the Euphrates. Once again, from Alexander Hislop. In China, and I know that Alexander Hislop has had many enemies and many people claim that this is absolutely BS, but you have to just check the sources. There are other people also in the past who did come out with the same result, and it's quite logical. In China, ancient Egypt and Greece, eggs were used for religious rites. In pagan Anglo-Saxon, painted eggs were offered to the goddess Eostre Ostara at the spring equinox. They were placed in graves to symbolize rebirth. This custom was also known among the Egyptians and the Greek. And let me assure you that it cannot be a Christian festivity, that Easter, because the date is always changing, because it is depending on the sun and the moon, and not depending on the actual date of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. And that's one argument which you cannot talk against anything. Yeah. So if somebody would knew the day of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, then it would be the same day 2,000 years after that. But the date is changing every year. So you know that this has nothing to do with the crucifixion of Christ. So much so for these pagan rites. Yeah, and also the Easter bunny. You see that rabbits do not lay any eggs. Yeah, so they bring eggs, but it is just the fertility rites, because in Germany you got a saying that they fornicate like rabbits. Yeah, so the rabbit is an animal which is very good known for lots of children, let's say. Maybe the Easter Bunny lays eggs, according to the pagan mythology of Ishtar, who has had a wonderful bird, which then was being miraculously transformed into a rabbit. And her son Tammuz loved rabbits, therefore they have been seen as being sacred, holy. These are all lies. These are all lies. You see that to discover all the things, why have we are all just here proclaiming lies, 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 lies. Yeah, it's always lies. Yeah, got the T for Tammuz. People don't see that. I've been said that is for a land, and yeah, sure. So you see, or you know, that the United States has been founded on the fundamental layout of the so-called Freemasons. And the Freemasons, of course, have been founded by some secret orders who wanted to erect some orders of the Protestants where they can meet them in secret. Yes, the actual idea of Freemasonry is far beyond the birth of Christ, so to speak, in flesh, because actually the idea of Freemasonry is at least from Babel, from the Tower of Babel, when they want to be like gods. Yeah, I want to build a tower as a skyscraper to reach heaven, to be godlike. Happened in Genesis chapter 11. That's why 11 is a very high number in Freemasonry. Huh? There is a book by John Daniel called The Grand Design Exposed, and not by coincidence, it's been depicted here the New World Order with the 666 symbolism, and a pyramid with a top stone on the cover here. Remember the pyramid from your dollar bill without the capstone in place? Yeah, that's the book. And in this book, there is an interesting page. This is page 302. Quote, "The truth is the Jesuits of Rome have perfected Freemasonry to be their most magnificent and effective tool, accomplishing their purpose among Protestants, yet remaining completely hidden and unknown. But when you decipher the occult symbols of the Illuminati and Freemasonry that you see in Washington, D.C. on the U.S. Great Seal and on many other occasions as well, then you discover the workings and intentions of Rome that she so secretly and amazingly works behind. One of the most startling, when you understand what it means, is the pyramid and its capstone not sitting in place. That makes up the reverse of the American dollar bill or the American Great Seal, and has been seen as the back of $1 bill. Yes, that pyramid, which represents the heart and soul of Babylonian sun worship and its great work that is carried on by Romanism, is unfinished. Why? Because the capstone, which represents the Novus Ordo Seclorum or New World Order, is not yet in place. Which also means, however, that Rome's time clock ever since the birth of this nation has been ticking, anticipating for over 200 years the date when the capstone will be put into place. That special event will signal or herald the beginning of the so-called Triumph of Mary, which proclaims the victory of Rome for dominating the whole world. The Virgin...
that rings a bell. That rings a big bell.
Yeah.
You know that atop the U.S. Capitol building in Washington, D.C., there sits a statue of the goddess, what was her name again now?
Yeah, I think it was usually been depicted as Astarte.
Yeah, I think something, I forget.
But it's the Queen of Heaven. You see that?
Same thing. Right.
Yeah, you can exchange the names, but
so there you go in plain sight, for everyone to see, what sits atop the Capitol building in Washington D.C. is the same thing that's mentioned here.
Yeah, absolutely. And Capitol means the head, and Capitol actually means the Temple of Jupiter.
Right.
Capital Washington. And you see on top, it is very strange. You got the Roman architecture, and as well as
that's right.
you got a goddess on top. Yeah. So don't tell me, please don't tell me for 1 second, yeah, that it is the seat of the government which has been elected by the people. Yeah. When you see all this Freemasonry touch in it and Roman architecture in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So please. Yeah, what is that?
2 pillars, Michael? Yeah.
Yeah, what is that other than a temple?
That's right. That's what it is.
Yeah.
You're there
So
to worship.
you can also exchange the flag with the flag of Libya or what else you see, or the flag of Italy, or
it's all about the God
matter.
of this world, isn't it? Yeah, it really is.
The supreme being is that goddess depiction here on top.
Yeah, I think there's 12 fascia that surround that, if I remember.
Mm-hmm. Maybe, yes, can be.
Underneath, under her feet.
Yeah. Yeah, I cannot enlarge it anymore. Yeah.
No, that's fine. That works.
Mm-hmm.
I have a picture somewhere of when they pulled the statue down to clean it back in I think it was the 80s, 70s, 80s. I don't know, somewhere in there.
Yeah, that's extremely important that you got a clean statue.
Especially nowadays when you got the Pope coming to speak to joint session of Congress.
Oh, yeah. People, how can people be so blind? I don't know.
Well, it's simple. They don't care, Michael.
The Bible depicts that Satan blinds the eyes and the minds of the people. Yeah, so many people are so driven by materialism.
Well, Michael, very good point. And the thing is, here in America, we work so much. We are working so much that we just want our entertainment. We get home, we're fried. We just want to be entertained or whatever. And then, that you just find this apathy here that is unquenchable. And that's why. It was just people are overworked and they have no idea and they don't care because they're very impatient and upset and whatever. So, yeah, there's a lot of apathy here, Michael. Yeah. And I don't think Europe is much different, actually.
No, Europe means the lover of Zeus. Yeah, so that's where the continent got its name from. So it also comes from the Greek mythology. What do you expect? That nothing to do with Christianity.
Well, the one advantage you do have in Europe that you don't have here is your history has been much more refined. And I think you have a much better grasp on history in Europe than you do in the United States, where we have a huge learning curve over here. A lot of things to catch up with. It's this world is not what it seems, Michael. Not at all what it seems.
So the article says that this special event, so that means the capstone, will signal or herald the beginning of the so-called triumph of Mary, which proclaims the victory of Rome for dominating the whole world. The Virgin Mary, who is actually Rome's Isis, or what else, Venus, Astarte, will become Rome's central figure used to deceive and rally the Earth's inhabitants, compelling them to submit to the new order of things. Consequently, it will bring on to the need to immediately revive the diabolical Holy Inquisition with unprecedented powers and brutality to rid the earth of dissenters. As conclusive evidence that should awaken the most dedicated skeptic to the reality of truth, on New Year's Eve, 31st December 1999, it has been scheduled to place a golden capstone on the Great Pyramid of Cheops in Memphis, Egypt, that for centuries has never had a capstone. However, true to Rome's inbred nature, in order to add confusion and throw observers off track, the scheduled capping will be cancelled and postponed. A superficial reason will be given. The world is in a millennium moment, experts and occultists will say, which lasts from 1999 through 2001. The metamorphosis of 31st December 1999 into 1st January 2000 is not really the year 2000 nor the millennium. The real date for the millennium is the 1st of January 2001. Now, if the experts say it, then it certainly must be true. I have to add something, because I think that is no coincidence that in our society, at least here in Germany or Europe, I am so bombarded with feminism. When you got Edwards, then it is the woman who sorts out the things, who is commanding the family. It's the woman who is then deciding what kind of car the couple will buy. So it's always the male who is nodding and said, oh, I'm so glad that I got such a clever and intelligent and smart woman. But it's the women who are in charge, actually. They are absolutely mixing everything up that the Bible says. So it is not patriarchy anymore, which is the Bible's concept, but it is matriarchy. So the mother worship and the worship of female things. It is so obvious, blatant in the eye, especially combined with sexualism without any end, that young girls here are almost going all into ripped trousers, showing naked stomachs. It is so interesting, on the one hand, when you compare that to 50 years ago. Yeah, it is so obvious that they now are worshipping the fertility of women and that women are in power. Think of how many presidents or leaders of a country and ministers are female nowadays. Even defense ministers who have never served in the army. Yeah, but these are all women. Yeah, and so the concept of that women are superior than men, of course, it's very interesting because it is anti-biblical and everything has to be anti-biblical. So it is not that the children shall obey their parents. It's now the other way around. The children will tell their parents, oh, because you are exhaling, you are a severe threat to the planet.
I think what you mean by anti-biblical is simply indoctrination. It's the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
which means doctrine that doesn't exist, essentially. Yeah. It's replaced the doctrine of the Bible. It's the same thing as the Antichrist. He replaces Christ. He becomes Christ in the mind of the people, see? Yeah. That's what the Antichrist is. It's not the opposite or the, it's more subtle, isn't it, Michael? Much more subtle.
Yeah. English Freemasonry infiltrated by Jesuits. Some very interesting comments taken from a book written in 1798 titled Proof of the Conspiracy by Professor John Robinson and Scottish Protestants will shed some light on the Jesuit subversions taking place in the lodges of Freemasonry from 1648 till his own time. In his first chapter, Schism in Freemasonry, page 12 and 13, he states, I have met with many particular facts which convince me that this use may have been made the meetings of Mason and that this time the Jesuits interfered considerably, insinuating themselves into the lodges and contributing to increase that religious mysticism that is to be observed in all the ceremonies of the order. We also know that Charles II was made a Mason and frequented the lodges. His brother and successor James II, he did not frequent the lodges. The lodges in France naturally became the rendezvous of the adherents to their banished king and the means of carrying on a correspondence with their friends in England. At this time, also Jesuits took a more active hand in Freemasonry than ever. They insinuated themselves into the English lodges where they were caressed by the Catholics who painted after the re-establishment of their faith and tolerated by the Protestants royalists who thought no concession too great a compensation for their services. At this time, changes were made in some of the Masonic symbols, particularly in the tracing of the lodge, which bear evident marks of Jesuitical interference, and so on and so on. In this progressive mummery, we see much of the hands of Jesuits, and it would seem that it was encouraged by the Church. Yeah, sure, the Jesuits just being only the soldiers of the Roman Catholic Church in general. It must be seen that these men who take such great pride in being a Jesuit surely would have been active in their place and in a way to be most effective in accomplishing their order's goal. Yeah, the end justifies the means. To contend that Jesuits were not involved in Freemasonry would have to be a severe discredit to the Jesuitical or Jesuit image. There is a saying that says that behind every successful man, there is a woman. And maybe it's also the same thing for Freemasonry. Behind every successful Freemasonry, there is a Jesuit. And it is true when it comes down, for example, to Albert Pike, because I know who his handler allegedly was. But that's a very interesting book, and I have not got so much deep into this. But you see that your state, your American United States of America, has been founded on the basement of Freemasonic, Frère Maçon. So from France, there you got your symbol of the so-called Statue of Liberty. So what kind of liberty is it depicted when it depicts a Roman goddess of liberty? It's Roman liberty. Oh,
That's
yeah.
right, Michael. You hit it right square on the head, man.
Yeah.
Like Jörg Glismann says, welcome to Romerica.
Yeah.
Of course. How's it going there in Romerica? He would ask.
Of course. You see, that is so easy. I don't know when it will show up in the script, but it's so easy. When there was an old world order, then now it's a new world order. Then because America is the new world, then it is a new world order. So George Washington not only has his obelisk, but also has a national memorial. There's a Masonic building. It's in Alexandria, Virginia. It's a virgin outside Washington D.C. Dedicated to George Washington, first president, and a Mason. So that is no contradiction. You can be a first president, and you can be a Mason as well as you can be a president of the United States and a Catholic. 333 foot tall memorial sits atop, and blah blah blah. Nothing else to see here. And if is that not the kind of an obelisk, I don't know what is. Oh, it is an obelisk. Oh, they admit it to you. Great. I think that in Germany they would have erased that from Wikipedia. Yeah. So on Independence Day on 1848, the Freemasons, the same organization to which Washington belonged, laid the cornerstone symbolically, not physically. Oh yeah, the cornerstone and then the topstone. Yes. And it's very interesting. No, I have not a better picture of that, what is here on top, but actually I don't care. Yeah, actually, we want to go back to Mr. Kennedy, but I just wanted to show some sources to you that all the things that the Roman Catholic Church are in tradition are being celebrating. They are coming from an ancient source, and it is not the ancient Egyptian Rome, but it is Babylonian, actually. And it's no coincidence because the apostate Jews in captivity in Babylonia, they brought their rites. Of course, if you are a pagan, then you are celebrating pagan rites. It's quite logical. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. The president dies from food poisoning. Oh, what could that be? And Grandmaster also, you see, that could also mean something for Freemasonry. The Grandmaster. Jesus Christ said, call no man a master. That is in Matthew 23. Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, Kings of the Street. You see that always, as much as I like their songs, I have to point out that these people try to exalt themselves because they're saying that these are the Grandmasters, the Furious, and the Kings of the Street. It's so easy. And there is also some references to JFK. Then we will finally then shut down the session and do the next one. This is from the Oliver Stone collection, the infamous movie with the actor Kevin Costner, JFK. And in that Oliver Stone movie, it is very interesting because it is everything very interesting here. There is one scene, it's called A Meeting with X. The movie is from 1991 and had very high regarded those days, so it's 30 years old. And I will show that clip to you. I will insert it here. And let us try to do a summary here. This Mr. X is said to be Colonel Fletcher Prouty, who had been called off duty to the Antarctica, could not protect the president during the motorcade in Dallas, and then came up with many conclusions and said, no, it's the government behind, it's the so-called ST. ST is the abbreviation for secret team. He did not mention anybody because he was in the army at that time later on, but he resigned then. He wrote some books about the JFK assassination. And here he is the official informant of Kevin Costner. This Colonel Fletcher Prouty been played by Donald Sutherland. And this attorney, Jim Garrison, who has made the 1968 investigation into the JFK assassination, been played by Kevin Costner. And Colonel Fletcher Prouty, the informant, tells here now in that movie, the attorney, Jim Garrison, that people shall be keeping busy by the uninteresting question, who ever killed Mr. Kennedy, but not ask the interesting question. he should prevent the people from asking the most important question: why was Kennedy killed? Not who. Why was Kennedy killed? And now he gives us an interesting hint. Look at this. Yeah, who benefited and who had the power to cover it up? And now look at his hand gesture. I will show that to you in a few seconds. This hand gesture means 666. Not A-OK, what the lay people think, but it means 666, the sun god, or the pagan trinity, the pagan god. And actually also, in addition to that, he's wearing a black ring on his middle finger. The middle finger is a symbol for Saturn, so the god of death or the devil himself. Okay? And that means who has the power to cover it up? And then he flashes the 666 sign, and then it's very obvious which organization he means. He means a religious organization. So this is a secret code message for the people who are actually been very much educated into knowing what kind of symbolism he means. Therefore, I will add this video here.
Well, that's a real question, isn't it? Why? The how and the who is just scenery for the public. Oswald, Ruby, Cuba, the mafia. Keeps them guessing like some kind of parlor game, prevents them from asking the most important question: why? Why was Kennedy killed? Who benefited? Who has the power to cover it up?
So you watch that movie and you now know why I think that he's been playing with secret messages, that Oliver Stone, and Oliver Stone has been accused to be a Jesuit coadjutor. And you see that all these depiction, all these symbols, actually, people are not aware of that usually. This is a depiction of the on-off button on your computer. And actually what that is a penetration. It is an obelisk in the middle of a female womb. So to speak. Yeah, so this is also an obelisk or a column on that regard. Yeah, so this is the in. Yeah, it's in. It's now working. It's in progress. Yeah, yeah. And so this obelisk here is, of course, not only the Washington Monument, which you could see in the JFK movie, quite after that Mr. X says who had the power to cover it up. Then they're showing the Washington Obelisk, and then you initiate knows that, okay, that is a symbol for the pagan sun god, meaning there is a religious community, religious organization behind, a pagan organization behind covering it up. And it's very interesting that your Washington Monument is not by far the highest or the tallest obelisk. Interesting enough, the tallest obelisk in America, or in the United States of America, is in Texas, once again, in the city of San Jacinto. San Jacinto. And has, of course, the Texanian or the Texas 5-star on the top. And also you got 3 openings here for the Trinity, of course. And it's San Jacinto. So I don't know if Mr. Peter Gabriel means San Jacinto, which is San Jacinto mountain, or he means maybe also a symbol for the sun god, because in that song, which we have been covered, I think it was 2 years or so ago, he says, look at the mountaintop. But then he says, yellow eagle flies down from the sun, So also sun has been prominently mentioning here twice, a repetition, which means sun must be very important on that regard. Yeah. This is also Mr. Gabriel playing around with mythology. And this is an initiation of most likely of, what is it now? Native American tribes, shamanism, yes.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Yeah, and in so many books, it is a very mystery religion, and so many books that have been depicted here. Yeah, there's a San Jacinto Peak near Los Angeles. Yeah, so this is, of course, in California. It's a very cool picture. I don't know if it is Photoshop, but it's a very clear blue sky, something which almost never occurs here in Germany for several reasons. Yeah, but it also could depict the big obelisk in San Jacinto. Censorship to monument. And that's also half the truth here. Because half the truth means, of course, there is a reflection, mirror, reflection lake. Female and male. That's the male part. You see here Trinity, 1, 2, 3. You see the 5-pointed star. It's actually the pentagram. It's the 5 times I will. It's also the stationary phases of the Venus, or let's say it's Semiramis, what else, or Isis. And you see the reflection pool. So this is the monument of an obelisk. This is a sun god symbol. It must be very important. Was a bit expensive here, I'd say. In the city La Porte, which means the opening or the door. And that's the obelisk. Obelix. Okay. It's always the same. It's always the same. Of course, there's an obelisk in front of St. Peter's Square, which is not engraved. Therefore, you see the engravement. It's been said that the stone is not engraved, but of course, the bottom here is engraved then. It's always the same. You see the people, they're lying to you. It's been said that here, the son of Divus Julius, the divine Gaius Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar was being called what? Was being called the Pontifex Maximus, the same title that the Pope usually bared. This is the flag of Texas with the 5-pointed star. 5-pointed star, of course. How's to say that this is a combination of the East Indian Company together with the satanic pentagrams, and that is supposed to be a free country? Very interesting allegation. So the 5-pointed star is also a symbol of magic. This is the Wizard of Oz. Dorothy, I want to go home. Yes, I also want to go home, but I got stuck here on this earth. I'm sorry. And the Bible forbids any image to erect. Never shout or set up any image with the Lord thy God hated. Sorry, Brett, for not letting you read it, but just I was too fast. A column, by analogy, an idol, garrison, a standing image, a pillar. Because every pillar and every obelisk are depicting the sun god, the pagan god. It's in so many occasions. And of course, this is the Dallas Didi Plaza obelisk with 40 segments. 14, not 40, 14 segments. The obelisk of Osiris, Egyptian Trinity, sun god, sun temple with a flame on top. Flame on top. You see it here from another angle. That's a flame on top, and that's also a flame on top, but this is on top of the grave of John F. Kennedy. So even in that, they are mocking him, because his death was being, carried out as a sacrifice for the pagan sun god. It's an eternal flame. There is even, I read that, there is even a mechanism inside which prevents the flame from blowing out, so that it will be a real eternal flame. It's the same eternal flame which is depicted here on top. And we have learned that it is the eternal flame was the symbol of the Trinity in Babylon. It's the eternal flame. And this Didi Plaza has been mentioned to the honor of George Bannerman Didi. He was a 33rd degree Scottish Rite Mason, Knight Templar, Shriner, and a member of the Red Cross of Constantine. He was a Presbyterian Democrat, and what else? You see that he was everything. He was a 33 degree Mason and a Knight Templar. So Protestant and Catholic, who cares? This has been depicted here on that plate, Didi Plaza, birthplace of Dallas. Within a small park was built the first home, which also served as the first courthouse and post office, the first store, and the first fraternal lodge. It is a Freemason temple, that Didi Plaza. You see here? Male, female, reflection pool. Yes. And that is in line to these buildings, this infamous building, the Texas School Book Depository, where allegedly a marksman allegedly shot the president in the back several times. You see that here, the reflection pool. Yes, it's the same symbol as Washington, or the obelisk of Washington. Huh? And also there bears some resemblance here. I think, if that is correct, I have not measured it. It's 555 feet high. The same as the United Nations building. Yeah, and George Washington being a famous Freemason, nobody denies that. Yeah, you see that it's in plain sight. And with that gender skirt, I always find that very strange here. But of course, that that is just for the tools of the Freemason. And Washington was the great master of the Freemasons of the United States. Yeah, in the Freemason Lodge, Alexandria, number 39. Yeah, and he was making his oath on the Freemason Bible. Yeah, the Lodge Bible of the St. Lodge number 1. Yeah, because the Bible was not ready yet. They have sworn the oath, or he has sworn his oath, Brett, on the oath of the Bible of the Freemasons. So your country has really been founded on the basement of Freemasonry, which is paganism. But there were also exceptions. John F. Kennedy, who said that, no, I'm just only using my Catholic family Bible. There it is. And you shall be very suspicious when you see that image on that cover. Yeah, the Fitzgerald Family Bible. Okay, then read once more here. The Holy Bible was first published at Douay 1609, and the New Testament first published at Reims 1582. And then you know what kind of a Bible that is.
Yep.
The Douay Reims Bible, a Jesuitical Bible. My. That Bible was used during the swearing-in ceremony of President John Kennedy. Yeah. He says, quote, when a man's way please the Lord, the scriptures tell us, he maketh even his enemies to be at peace with him. Yeah, I think that he did not succeed, that his enemies made peace with him. Yeah, and George W. Bush, who has made his inauguration in outside, yeah, they were refusing that they use the Bible because of the rain and moisture. Sure, you see, they did not have any cover, huh? Because he's too busy with the war on terrorism. Yeah. The American people have to be patient. Yes, this is George Washington, and this is Baphomet. As above, so below. As above, so below. Yeah, you see that it's hilarious if you compare all these analogies, actually. Yeah, but you see that we do not learn that in school. No, because the method and the task of the CIA, for example, is to spread disinformation. But of course, also there is a certain John Swinton who happened to be a journalist in 1883 in a so-called Twilight Club when he was quitting his job. He was a journalist of the, I have to look it up, what was it? John Swinton, Mitbegründer der Club. John Swinton. Lass ihn kopieren. Oh, the New York Times, the chief editorial writer of the New York Times. And he made a claim here. He says, there is no such thing in America as an independent press unless it is out in country towns. You are all slaves. You know it and I know it. There is not one of you who dares to express an honest opinion. If you express it, you would know beforehand that it would never appear in print. I am paid $150 for keeping honest opinions out of the paper I am connected with. Others of you are paid similar salaries for doing similar things. If I should allow honest opinions to be printed in one issue of my paper, I would be like Othello before 24 hours. My occupation would be gone. The man who would be so foolish as to write honest opinions would be out on the street hunting for another job. The business of a New York journalist is to distort the truth, to lie outright, to pervert, to vilify, to fawn at the feet of mammon, so it is about money, and to sell his country and his race for his daily bread, or for what is about the same, his salary. You know this, and I know it. And what foolery to be toasted an independent press. We are the tools and vessels of rich men behind the scenes. We are jumping jacks. They pull the strings and we dance. Our time, our talents, our life, our possibilities are all the property of other men. We are intellectual prostitutes. So don't expect the truth from the press. And in Matthew 6:24, God or Jesus Christ says nobody can serve two masters. Yeah, you cannot serve God and a mammon. Sorry, this is German here, but nonetheless, you cannot serve God and the mammon. You have to decide yourself. So the more you serve the mammon, the more rich you are, the less you serve God, because you're only rich because you do not give something away to people in need. Now, that is a thing that people usually don't think of. Yeah, no man can serve two masters. Oh, sorry, I have forgotten that I have inserted it here. Yeah, you cannot serve God and the mammon. Cannot serve. Yeah, and I think that's a very good point to close the session down. I have to take a short break of 5 minutes, and thank you very much for listening to this. This was the second thing, to combine the ancient rites to the current political system in the United States of America, not only there in Freemasonry. And then from there on, we will go in the next upcoming session, we will go to the place, or at least the town, of the assassination of your President Kennedy in Dallas, Texas. Thanks very much for having me. Please read your Bible, and Maranatha, handing it over to my beloved brother Brett.
Wow, Michael, that is quite a session we did, and we're headed right into the heart of it, aren't we? And this is kind of the whole reason people should be inspired to do their own research, is because when you do that, when you take the time to look at something the way Michael has done here, you might find that you discover something completely contrary to what you ever thought, because that's certainly the case here, Michael. This so-called experiment to the United States has really turned out to benefit the founders of, the hierarchy, and that's about it. Anything that gets in the way has to be dealt with, and of course, that's kind of where this is leading, is how they dealt with Mr. Kennedy, our president. So thank you for the research, Michael. Thank you for taking the time to go through all of this in great detail, because really that's what's needed here. And I just wish that there were more people that were available to see the series and consider it in its entirety. But, Michael, I think the problem is we have too many people that want everything in 5 minutes, and that's it. They'll give you 5 minutes, but that's it. And you better present it as quick as possible, and throw down the gauntlet on it, pretty much, because people don't have enough time. That's the trouble. People don't take the time to do these things anymore, and that's the shame of it, because if they did, they'd see the full picture. They know the full picture, and they know it well, and no one could deceive them. That's the point. So, Michael, my hope is that this series will take off. But at this point, the way I see it, there's so much suppression on YouTube that, maybe in 2014, 2015, the numbers would have been much higher back then. But in this present day and age, there's just such a huge amount of suppression, as far as I can tell. But then again, what do I know, Michael? Anyway, hope to catch you next time. Maranatha.